Iran keeps on being Iran. We're going to get into it. Trump keeps on being Trump. This is why I'm a triple Trumper. We're going to go over it. Lindsey Graham, the senator, passes away at 71, too young. Look, I'm not a radio show or a TV show. I always saw him as a sort of an example of the people who want to get in and stay in government forever. I'm sad for his family. I'm sad for the voting situation for Save America Act because we're down 2. He's passed away, and we got Weekend at Bernie's with his proof of life photo, who's not going to the Senate. So it looks like we're down 2 votes. So listen, we're going to get into it. This is The Ordinary American. I'm your host, Paul Sarkis. This show is anti-leftist. Anti-leftist. Okay? Great hat tip to David Horowitz. Anti-leftist. So we are anti-democrat. We're going to talk about socialism too. We're going to start briefly with what does Lindsey Graham's death mean to Save America? Just what I said. They were down 2 votes. We got Weekend at Bernie's, stuck in rehab, doing his proof of life photo. By the way, that is not the way that the Senate is supposed to be run. The 17th Amendment, if you've heard me before mention it, is a disgrace. The state legislatures were supposed to appoint them. If that were the case, they could pull him back right now and put somebody else in. Lindsey Graham passes away. The governor of South Carolina gets to appoint somebody. The election is in what, November, I believe. He was running for re-election. So he'll put somebody in who will serve to them. Unlikely that that person will also be running. Whoever goes in, Trump is pushing for Lindsey Graham's sister, must be a 100% Save America Act voter. It's the only important thing for them to do. So just a procedural thing. We need the votes. Let's see how we do. I trust Trump. Trump says he was a great friend to Trump. He says he was very helpful. I trust him. Trump knows way more about what's going on down there than I do. And if you remember, Trump gave out his phone number in one of his rallies, and then Lindsey Graham and he had a beef, and then they've been great friends. So I'll trust Trump on that. All right, that's the Lindsey Graham. All right, I want to get into Iran is really what I want to get into. There's a lot of stuff to show. All right, I'm going to play a little clip here from his appearance this morning. Let's just listen to it.
But we had a deal. What nobody knows, we had a deal. It was a done deal. And then they broke it. They always break it. We've had 10 deals with these people. And so we're just going to hit them very hard. And we're going to keep the Strait, and we'll probably run it. We'll become the guardian of the Strait. Maybe we'll call it the guardian angel of the Strait. And we should be reimbursed for that. When we do that, we're going to be reimbursed because the other nations are very wealthy. They're on our side. And we can't be expected to do that for nothing, unlike we had for many years. You know, we guarded the Strait for 50 years more, and we never got paid for it. They made all the money, and the United States was just, you know.
This is why I'm a triple Trumper. Right here. He's saying we're bombing the hell out of them. We'll get into all this in a second. But what is he saying? We're going to get paid for it. And he's saying, hey, they're our friends. We're working with them. They're on our side. They're very wealthy. They're all going to do very well. And we'll show his Truth Social here in a moment where he talks about this. But this is why I'm a triple Trumper. No other politician I've ever seen has been willing to stand up and say, and we got to get paid for it. It's a transaction. It's not love and cuddles. It's a transaction. We're spending our tax dollars. The reason why no politician has ever stood up and said this is because they don't care about our tax dollars. They print away our purchasing power, and they steal our tax dollars. That's it. They don't care. We're just a revenue source for them, not to Trump.
They wouldn't. It's amazing. It's we guarded it for nothing. And now we're going to guard it. We're going to get paid for guarding it. A lot of money. But we just want to be reimbursed for doing all of this, for putting our people in danger. But we're really not putting people, we're really saving people. Remember this, they killed 52,000 protesters so far. As of this moment, the number is 52,000. So who's going to protest? And a lot of people are surprised about the protesting, that they haven't. But nobody's going to protest when they get shot. They have AK-47s, they have machine guns aimed at people's heads.
He's given us a lot of information here. By the way, the Iranians don't have guns. They don't have a Second Amendment. This is why everybody the left wants to talk about the Second Amendment having to do with hunting. No. This is why. Okay, it is a deterrent to tyranny.
Move 1 foot further, you get shot, and then they'll shoot 10 of them, and everybody flees. Who's not going to flee? They don't have guns.
Right.
So they're a bad group of people. Let me just tell you that. I don't say that often, and I have to live with that statement. They're a bad group of people. They've been this way for a long time, and right now they're getting their ass kicked, and in the top form. But we had.
All right, I love that. Right now they're getting their butts kicked. This is great. So this is Trump. He's pissed. He's trying to make a deal. He says we've got to deal with them, and then they get off the phone and they go do something else and they bomb people. And now what is he doing? We're bombing the poop out of him. What's really going on? I think everybody sort of can see that it's getting to be sort of, I think, less and less important. Do you feel that too? Like it's less and less important in the markets. It's less and less important in daily life. Yes, the price of oil per barrel has gone up a bit. I think it was up to $78 or $79 before I came on the show. Okay. And it was down to about 70 or so, or 71, 72. Okay. But he's got to get rid of them. Now what's happening? I think they're slowly dying off. So my sense is that over time, there'll be a regime change now, but it won't be dramatic. It will be more like a whimper and not a bang. It'll just sort of be one day we'll wake up and there will have been a regime change and it will be sort of not that big a deal and not that bloody. That's what I think is going to happen, because I think we're just killing them all and we're taking away all of their ability to do much. Okay, I want to briefly go to his Truth Social, and then I want to go and show another thing that the Iranians are just retarded. I mean, they're just. I've said it before. I did a whole show on it once. They could have made a great deal. They could have gone and lived like Assad. They couldn't because they're retarded, and now they're all dead, and they're going to turn to bone dust, the rest of them. Okay, but they could have got their money, and they could have probably lived in France or some other place. Not anymore. What else are they doing stupid? Well, we're going to read this in a second, but they're doing stupid things because they're forcing the rest of the world to see, oh, you know what? That was a real weakness. We're not going to put up with that anymore. And so they're building alternatives to that. We'll come back to that. This is his Truth Social. The Hormuz Strait is open. All right? Name of the show today. The Strait is open. He's trying to say to the world, ignore them. The Strait is open. And will remain open with or without Iran. See that? Doesn't matter. We're doing it anyways. We're reinstating the Iranian blockade, so named because it is only stopping Iran's ships or customers from entering or leaving. He's letting the world know, only Iran. All other countries will have fair and open use of the Straits, everyone. The USA will be, from this point forward, known as the guardian of the Hormuz Strait. By the way, he thinks this way. Marketing, sales, this is how he thinks. This is important. This is why he comes up with nicknames for people. Okay? But as such, and as a matter of fairness, will be reimbursed at a rate of 20% on all cargo shipped for any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security to this very volatile section of the world. The process and formation will begin immediately. Thanks for your attention. Okay, common sense. This is why I'm a triple Trumper. Yes, we're going to keep it safe. Yes, it's open. Iran, it doesn't get through. Everybody else does, and we're going to get paid. And as he says, all these other countries are going to be okay with this. Will they like it? No. But it acts as an incentive to get rid of the regime and open it up through legitimate forces. Okay? This is critical. This is the difference. And this is why I say the whole Iran situation is sort of fading in, or this is how I feel. Let me know if you feel the same. Send me a note, put it in the comments. It's fading in its importance. Why? Because they're all dying. Because they're being killed, because they're losing capability. And we'll show the next thing. Because the other states and the other countries in the Gulf are saying, you know what? We're going to have to come up with an alternative. We're going to have to come up with a way to get around them. These guys, I mentioned these guys, I actually use them a fair amount on here. Kobayashi, Letter, they're kind of Trump haters, but they have some good stuff sometimes. The UAE is planning to build a new port and container terminal on the country's east coast to bypass the Straits of Hormuz, per the Financial Times. That's right down here. Okay? So you'd be able to get everything that they'll probably build some pipelines or bring it in trucks, and then they skip the Straits. Okay, this is what he's saying. This is what the article's saying. Dubai's DP World is in talks to develop a new multi-purpose port in the coastal area of Fujairah. Not sure if I pronounced that right. The new project would allow containers to enter and leave the country without having to pass through the Straits of Hormuz. Shipments would then be moved on trucks overland to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and neighboring Gulf countries. The Iran war continues to reshape global trade. This is why I say this is the same thing as the idiot leftists who do minimum wage or rent control. Minimum wage costs jobs. People automate, people fire people, or close stores. It does not accomplish what they want. Rent control, we're seeing this in New York, highest rent prices ever. Okay? This is the retardedness of the left and the retardedness of these guys. They are forcing all their neighboring countries to abandon the straits and find alternatives. We already talked a bunch of weeks ago. I think it's the UAE maybe is building a pipeline to go east and west to get around it. I'm not sure. Maybe it wasn't one of those countries, but they're all going around it. By the way, OPEC's falling apart. So the other countries are now going to go their own way. These guys, whatever they think they're fighting for, whatever fancy notions about, Allah and virgins or whatever, none of that's happening. There's not going to be any nuclear weapons. There's not going to be a regime. And like I said, my sort of prediction is that it's going to be a whimper, not a bang. And it's just sort of going to end because they're killing all of them. And then eventually we're going to get weapons, or the Saudis or the Israelis are going to get enough weapons to somebody in Iran, and they're going to be able to get rid of whatever's left of this regime. That's my suspicion. At the same time, what Trump has been doing is he's been drill baby drilling from the first term. So now we are the major producer of oil and gas in the world. That's great. Good guys. Time out. Direct leftist, idiot message of the day. Well, you idiots thought that it was appropriate if you wanted to save the environment and you would shut down the oil and gas production and exploration in the US. We were the cleanest in the world. What did you do? You shut ours down, and then the dirtiest in the world got to make more and sell more. Total retardville. Okay, if you cared about the environment, which you don't, it's just another tool to try to get control and put leftism in. But if you believed in the environment or believed that you needed it clean, you'd want America to produce more oil and gas because it's the cleanest in the world. Back. Okay. Sorry. Drill, baby, drill. Trump puts that in, and we're making oil and gas so much we can't even count it all. Okay, that's great. What else? The Maduro escapade. He goes in there with the Delta. Maduro's out. From what we read, he might be talking in his jail cell, so there might be some prosecutions. But we got his number two, Delcy Rodriguez. She seems to be playing nice. Trump seems to be saying nice things, going to jack up the production. So in the Western Hemisphere, between us and Venezuela and other minor producers, we may never even need eventually to get oil and gas from the Middle East. And wouldn't that be great? Well, we certainly wouldn't. We might be able to support the entire Western Hemisphere. But it also puts more on the market, on the world market, drives the price down. The great Professor St. Ange had a video out today saying basically that he thinks the gas price is going to go down below $2 over the next bunch of months before the end of the year. I think he's probably right. This is a little hiccup, but I think he's probably right. So this is why I'm a triple Trumper. This is why we talk about the Iran situation, because even though it's a foreign policy topic, and a lot of, in the old days anyways, a lot of people left the foreign policy to the so-called experts. I believe the experts suck and don't know a thing about what they're talking about. Okay? Ordinary Americans can do their own thinking. And that's all I am. Okay? I love my God, my family, and my country, and I got a great flag. But I can think through the nonsense to say, if the Iranians were selling oil on the black market to the Chinese, and now they can't do that anymore, the Chinese are going to have to pay full price, whatever that is. If Venezuela's on the market, if we're on the market, more supply. If the various countries in OPEC starts to peel off and say, we're going to go our own way because we want to produce more on the market, that's all good. More supply, unless the demand is growing faster, it's going to lower the price. Trump's doing this. And nobody else is going to drill, baby, drill. Everybody else was going to let the lefties and the rhinos and the establishment bully them into not drilling. Not Trump. Not Trump. Okay? This is great stuff. I don't know what's going to happen. It's frustrating. He's frustrated, obviously. He doesn't want this to go on any longer than it has to. But I do think he's getting there, and I do think it's going to end with a whimper, not a bang. All right. We're going to move on. We're going to talk a little bit of leftism, leftist nonsense. One of the areas that the left took over is healthcare. One of the things that they do well, they talked about the long march through the institutions. This started back, I believe, in the 20s with Woodrow Wilson in the teens and then the 20s. The long march through the institutions. And we've talked a little bit about this with Slaughterhouse being decided about a week or two ago, where they had got this sort of unelected bureaucracy, not unlike over in Europe, unelected people who are more or less, as a practical matter, making law through regulation. So Congress sort of gives up their authority. Why? They don't want it. They just want to get reelected. They want to corrupt things and get reelected. They don't want to take a stand on anything. So they put in this big unelected bureaucracy and put in rules and got courts to say you can't fire them. Now Trump can fire them, thank goodness. He's starting to do that, number one, and that's in Slaughterhouse. The Chevron deference case, which was in 2024, got overturned. So now there's no deference to this bureaucratic so-called experts. I'm bringing this up because healthcare is a place that the left has been extremely successful at essentially taking over. People don't realize that Obama nationalized student loans. So all student loans are our money. And our money goes directly to the colleges. That's how the left gets tax dollars, our money, to their political organizations. The universities are nothing more than political action committees. Only they educate kids. So they get a big bang for their buck. Okay, big bang for their buck. But they get our tax dollars to do it. Healthcare is the same thing. Trump has been talking about the solution to some of this stuff. And he did it with the Trump accounts. What's the solution? The solution is give the money to the citizens. In education, I've mentioned it a lot. If we could give every dollar of our taxes that go to education, say at the federal level, instead of pumping it to the states that go through the education industrial complex bureaucracy, send it right to the citizens. Every dollar goes into a educational savings account. Maybe it goes to the parents, but it goes to never ever touches bureaucracy. What happens? Well, we starve the bureaucracy. That's where a lot of the corruption happens, stealing our money. And the dollars go right to the parents who know how to spend it better. Great. In healthcare, he said the same thing. Instead of sending all this money to the insurance companies, which is what Obamacare essentially did, Obamacare was a way to socialize medicine. It basically took our tax dollars and funneled it through insurance companies who supposedly were going to give it back to us in the form of rebates and other things, or cost-effective healthcare insurance, which really isn't insurance. If you remember the great lie of all time, you like your plan, you can keep your plan. I was around for it. It sucked. Most of us conservatives, most of us MAGA before MAGA was something, we knew that was a lie. Okay? We knew it was a lie. We knew they were lying about the whole thing. If you remember, Nancy Pelosi said back then, you got to pass the bill if you want to see what's in it. What? I've played the clip before. We'll play it here in a few minutes of Jonathan Gruber talking about how they knew they had to lie to the American people. But the first thing I want to show today is this graph that came from this pretty good thread on X. And what it's showing is it's showing the massive bureaucracy that's been created in the healthcare world. Okay, can you guys see this? healthcare administration versus physicians, growth since 75 to 2025. Okay, this big line up here, this is the administrative costs of healthcare. This line down here is the number of physicians or the growth of physicians. See the difference? This all in here is the administration. This all in here is leftism. This is corruption, bribery. How can I say that? This is the medical field. It's not, none of these people, well, some of them are, they don't have to be bad people, but once they get a taste that our tax dollars get funneled through an insurance company and then through to either them working at the insurance companies or to all these medical professionals, they internalize and are told, well, if that law changes, you might lose your job. So that's a bribe. Okay, that's a bribe and a threat. That's what this is. Now, this X post goes in and begins to talk about how within this whole area in here, this is where AI is being deployed. So what they're saying essentially is one way or another, either we get rid of this whole system or AI is just going to take away a ton of these jobs because it does exactly what these jobs generally do, administrative things. We've shared, including late last week, how effective AI can be in diagnosing things. Not only are hospitals using it to keep people out of the intensive care, but individuals are using it to diagnose themselves and work with doctors. Not all, but many doctors now, when they're on their iPad, they're really on AI and they're taking in and they're looking things up. Okay? We're in a revolution of technology and productivity, and a lot of this is going to change. But this is important to see that this is the bureaucracy. This is the bribe. This is what goes on, stealing our tax dollars. And I show this one because we have an increase in the number of doctors. How has all this grown? Why do we need all this? The only purpose to have any of this line is to see this line. How is this so big? Okay? This is leftism. They build a bureaucracy. I want to show, if I can find it. There it is. Okay. This is an education. We've shown this in the past. I want to show you the similarity that's Bruiser. The similarity in the dynamic. This is growth in administrative staff, principals, teachers, and students in U.S. public schools. Okay. And you can see these years. It's a little old, but it makes the point. Blue is teachers and students, okay? Green is principals, okay? And then yellow is principals and assistants, and then this is administrative staff. See this? All of these space in here. This is like that purple and the other thing. This is what they do. They create jobs, put people on payrolls. What that other X post was essentially saying was, we may not think of ourselves as having a socialist jobs program, but that's what all this becomes. Healthcare becomes a jobs program. I was just thinking the other day as I was driving around and I was noticing there was a bunch of people who were walking to work in sort of medical garb. When I was a kid, you rarely saw that. You had a couple of medical buildings and that's where people went. Now, medical office buildings is a whole industry. And half the people I know work in the medical field. But yet the outcomes are getting worse. We got the Lindsey Grahams dying at 71. Okay, we got obesity and diabetes, high blood sugar, which is why the GLP-1, 2s, and 3s are so successful. Okay, but this is how the left takes things over without a bloody revolution. They get in there and they suck in and they sicken like ticks. Okay. And then they get those people who think, oh, well, my job's going to get taken away. I got to stay here. I got to vote this way. There was something, if you remember, years ago when the Obamacare was being devised, and it was Sarah Palin basically who said, there are death panels, and everybody said that's crazy. But what they do, they took out the death panels. Why? Because there were death panels. That's their ultimate goal. Their ultimate goal is to get in with their bureaucracy, take our tax dollars. By the way, all that money that goes to the insurance companies, big refresher. Government doesn't make anything. All they do is take our money. All the so-called government money that goes to the insurance companies, that's your money. That's my money. They're taking it from us. They're giving it to the insurance companies. Their stock price is going up as they make hundreds and hundreds of billions in profits from our money. And then they deny us care. MRI costs, et cetera, everything goes through the roof. We don't get good medical care, not like we used to, okay, with our money. So they destroy the system. And then what happens? Then we're told they want to get rid of people. You don't believe me? Let's see if I can find it. I don't know if I can find it, actually. No, I probably can't find it at the moment. But let me see. No, and I don't want to waste too much time. There's a great clip, maybe I'll try to find it for tomorrow, of Bill Gates in like 2010 talking about how wouldn't it be better instead of spending $1 million on somebody's last 3 months of their life for life-saving care that doesn't work to go to teachers. This is the left. They want to control everything, death and suffering. Okay, now I do want to play as a refresher. We've played this before. We're probably going to play it again in the future. This is Jonathan Gruber. He's one of the architects of Obamacare. This is after Obamacare passed, him talking about how they lied to the American public about what it really was. Listen to this.
You can't do it politically. You just literally cannot do it. Okay, transparent financing, unless I have transparent financing, also transparent spending. I mean, this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed.
Hear that? Healthy people pay in, sick people get money. So if you spend your own time, money, and energy to stay healthy, what they're saying, which they did, which is what it's doing right now, is it takes your money. Young people pay attention. Who are the sicker people? They tend to be older. You young, healthy people, this is why it's crippling you, because they lied and they said, we don't want to tell anybody that. He says, if I told you that, you wouldn't vote for it.
Okay, just like the people, lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass. And, it's the second best argument. Look, I wish Mark was right. We could make it all transparent, but I'd rather have this law than not. So it's kind of like his reporter story. There's things I wish I could change, but I'd rather have this law than not.
He made a decision. He and the other leftists made a decision. This law is the primary important thing, so we're going to lie to you. And the lie, by the way, which is still going on, because this bill is still in, is hurting young people. How many social media posts do we see on TikTok of young people saying their health care bills are choking them to death? Okay? Blame him. Blame Obama. Blame the Democrats. They passed it without any Republican votes. And they knew what they were doing. He's admitting it to you. That's going on right now. What Trump is saying is, I want to take all of that money, your money, my money, his money, taxpayer money, that's going to those insurance companies directly from the government. I want to take that money and I want to give it to the individuals. Send it back right away. Why? You'll make a better decision than they will. When it goes in there, it's all kinds of grift and corruption and waste and fraud and abuse. We're seeing that. By the way, you see it with all the nonprofits that everybody keeps on finding. Billions and billions and billions of dollars of our money. No taxpayer money goes to any of those. It goes back to us. Give us an account. As I say all the time, I say this about education too. Two major things will happen. One, we'll get way better outcomes because we're in charge. Second one, we're going to see what we really are spending on this stuff. And it's way more than we're told. New York City, there was a study just recently, we talked about it all the time, $42,000 per student. Holy cannoli, with the awful results. Okay? Ridiculous. We're going to find that out with healthcare if we can get there. Why can't we get there? Because Trump has a Republican Senate and House that don't want to pass his legislation because they don't believe what he believes. They don't believe the money should go to you. They believe the money should go to them and let them dole it out, because that's how they get power. Two important things we've shared in the past from my time at the state and local level. It's the same process. It's the same dynamic. Famous state senator in Massachusetts said two things. One, our job was to employ the unemployable. That's the jobs program we were just talking about. It's not a direct jobs program. That's what they do. Two, and the great Dan Bongino has a similar story from a state politician friend of his. His words are, there's no power in yes. I think the state senator in Massachusetts said it's something like this. If I give everything to them, they won't come back. There's no incentive for anybody in Washington to solve problems. Why? If all the problems were solved, what would they be doing? They pretend to solve problems. They're really starting the problems and making them worse, but that's what they're pretending to do. This is why socialism is so unbelievably dangerous. This is why we need the Save America Act. All right, I wanted to show you one thing. Speaking of socialism, there is a, let me see if I can find it. There is a picture going around. Yeah, here it is. Okay. There's a picture going around of a meeting of the Democrat Socialists of America. And this is supposedly happened, within the last, let's say few weeks. So now-ish. Okay. Why am I putting it up? What do you see in there? What in the devil are people wearing masks for? Honestly. And by the way, these people who are in masks, she's sitting right next to this person without a mask. What is going on? The mask has become some kind of like a secret handshake. If you're a retard leftist, that's a sick person. Masks didn't work, they don't work now, and they can never work. Okay? Stupid. Wake up, people. If you're a young person and you feel compelled to wear a mask, you need to watch the show on loop and put a MAGA hat on, a Trump t-shirt, and start, I don't know, dancing around the room doing the Trump dance. Okay? You need to wake up. All right. There's two more things. If we have time, I want to get to both of them. Hold on. Where is it? That's got to go. Let's see. That's got to go. One's basically about socialism, and I really want to sort of read some of it because it talks about the psychological effect of leftism, socialism. So we'll kind of try to read some of this. This is a pretty great post. This guy, I don't know him, but I like his stuff. I don't know his point of view. I'm not vouching for him any way, but I am saying this is a great post. Socialism is a psychological disorder that puts an ideological clothing to hide what it actually is. Puts on ideological clothing to hide what it actually is. At its core, it's a specific kind of irrational resentment that is the inability to accept that in a free society, some people will simply be more, he wrote it wrong there, more or make more or have more. In other words, everybody's not going to have equal outcomes. We can have equal opportunity, this was the founding fathers wanted, but we're not going to have equal outcomes. What socialism does is it creates the resentment. We talk about this all the time. Socialism is nothing but more than resentment. Oppressor oppressed. Okay? What he's saying here is it creates the resentment that says, how can anybody have more than me? That makes me angry. And then what happens is that those people misunderstand their resentment for two things, in my opinion. He doesn't write about this, but this is my view. It does two things. One is those resentments allow people to feel extremely righteous. That's a very intoxicating feeling. We all know how intoxicating it is to be right or feel like we're right or get angry, okay, or get resentful. That's one. What's the second thing? Well, when you're resentful, you'll give yourself permission to do a lot of things, okay? You'll give yourself permission to do a lot of things. Let me keep reading here. And instead of competing or accepting that reality, different outcomes, the disordered mind, the leftist mind, creates the ideology that demands the system be changed so that no one is allowed to rise too high. This is we got to tax millionaires and billionaires. So they would rather live under a system of enforced mediocrity that limits everyone's freedom, including their own, than accept a world where some people can create visibly better outcomes. I want to come back to that. They can't help but eliminate the conditions that make other people's success possible. And since freedom produces unequal results, by the way, always, and that inequality is unbearable to this mindset, the resentment's too big, then freedom itself must be attacked. Go back here. Mediocrity. I respectfully disagree. It is not that everybody's got to be mediocre. It's everybody's got to suffer and die. There is no path for leftism other than suffering and death. That is the end result and the end goal of all leftism. So for young people, they tell you, you're drowning under the bills of healthcare. It sucks. The millionaires and billionaires have got, or not millionaires, I'm dating myself. The billionaires and trillionaires have got to give you more money so that you can earn it. They start the story in the middle, as Thomas Sowell would say. They don't say, how did we get here? We got here because Democrats voted entirely on their own with no Republican votes back in whatever year that was, 2010, when Obamacare passed. The Democrats did that. The ones who are trying to say to you, they have the solution. They're the problem. The great Dan Bongino. The Republicans may not be the solution to the problem, but the Democrats are the cause of the problem. You're darn right they are. We've played it in the past. I'll play it again, not today. The Great Three Stooges, Ants in the Pantry. Go watch it. That is a documentary about government and certainly about leftism. They create a problem and then come and say, oh, I'll solve it for you. They cannot solve it for you. You know what the solution is? You and I are the solution. MAGA is the solution and Trump is the solution. You have been brainwashed to think that Trump is some kind of an evil person. He is not. He's a human, so he's a sinner. He makes mistakes and he's not perfect, but he's the only advocate for ordinary Americans and for America that we've seen in our lifetime. Reagan was, and I was alive, I was an early teenager or late teenager, but that was it. Nobody else, which is why McConnell and Thune and even Johnson, none of them really want to pass any of the Trump agenda. Why? They don't want to make a change. They're not an advocate for me and you. They're an advocate for the system. They're an advocate for themselves and for power. That's it. That's it. And if you're voting Democrat, what's our famous line here? Well, not famous, but I like it. Voting for Democrats is like breaking into jail. That's what it is. So if you've been a young person and you've been raised, or even not a young person, oh, I got to vote for Democrats. No, you do not. It is not the party of JFK. It is not the party of Bill Clinton. It is not even the party of Barack Obama's first term. Sorry to tell you. Barack Obama, who ran in the first in 2008, could not get elected because in his platform was that marriage was only between a man and a woman. Can you imagine trying to win a Democrat primary with that stance? Well, that was his stance. The Democrat Party has changed rapidly. All right. I want to play a couple of other things. I want to get back and I want to show there's a couple of things from Trump's Truth Social. As you know, I love his Truth Social, and I tell you all the time, we got to check it. We got to check it. He put a ton of stuff on there praising Lindsey Graham. I will trust Lindsey Graham. I mean, I will trust not Lindsey Graham. I will trust Donald Trump. He says that it's great, or that Lindsey Graham was a friend. Okay, I'll trust him. I did not like him. He was not my cup of tea. Okay? I want to put this on there. This is from Trump's Truth Social. Trump's Truth Social about, what does that say? 5 hours ago. Support for deporting every illegal immigrant. 56% support, 44% oppose. This is from a Harvard-Harris poll. Okay? Not, MAGA Central. Okay? Why is that important? That's important because he is starting to ramp up the deportations. There's an article out today that says the administration is starting to develop basically a fleet of aircraft to be able to deport them 24/7. We're starting to see the effect in wages at the low end going up. We're starting to see it in housing price coming down because you're getting these people out of the market. They're distorting the market and they're getting our tax dollars. By the way, all of this is always the same. It is the elected class, largely the Democrats, but often with the help of the rhinos, stealing our tax dollars and funding their project to enrich themselves, continue to build their own power, and bribe people. That's always the scam. Look at the housing. They steal our tax dollars. They tell us that it's not being used for illegals to get housing. What do we find out? Not only are the illegals looking for housing and competing with us for the housing assets or housing inventory, but they're doing it with our money. Then come back to our money. The elected class printed away the purchasing power of the dollars we get to keep. This is the cycle. This is the cycle. Okay? Trump is the solution. MAGA is the solution. We need more of it, not less of it. More of it, not less of it. Okay. Now, I want to find, if I can find it here. Maybe I can't. Hold on. No, okay. Wait. There's an article. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it. I got to get better. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is from the Great Gateway Pundit. This ties into everything we always say, but specifically, it ties into some of the stuff we talk about education on. All right? Renowned feminist historian, I didn't even know that was a real thing. Renowned feminist historian loses professorship as experts tear apart her so-called historical findings. A black feminist historian, by the way, that right by the name tells you there's a problem. You don't need a feminist historian. You need a historian. A historian can be a woman, can be a man, and they sure as heck should be able to study and understand men from history and women from history. The very concept of a black feminist historian implies that that person will not essentially be a fair reteller of history because they're accentuating the black and the feminist. So in every story they see, they're going to emphasize or exaggerate on that. And that is certainly what happened here. This is referring to a New York Times article about this woman. I don't know her. Where is her name? Is that her name? Hold on. The Tale of, Kerry Greenidge, whose 2025 book, Grimke's, I don't know. I didn't read it. Never heard of it. Was hailed for its narrative, hear that? Narrative, not accuracy, about a slaveholding family and its work in the abolitionist movement. Okay? By the way, who worked in the abolitionist movement? A lot of white people. Publishers Weekly put the book on its list of that year's top books, while the American Historical Association handed Greenidge the Joine Kelly Memorial Prize, I don't know what that is, which honors scholars in women's history and feminist theory. Feminist theory. Everything's a theory. Okay? So she was at Tufts. She essentially got fired. She's pissed. And there's a bunch of people, and where's her quote? I've never plagiarized anything in my life. I have never fabricated anything. Are there citations that were misattributed? Probably. Okay? If you're in grade school and you misattribute something in a paper, when I was growing up, you're done. Why am I bringing this up today? I'm bringing this up today because this is the left. They get these people into universities. She was a teacher, so she's teaching all this nonsense to people. Okay? And she's making the claim essentially that she's a black feminist, which means she needs special treatment. She needs special awards. She needs to be called the black feminist. Special treatment. No, we don't need that. Why? Because as we've seen before, what gets sort of seeped into society is everybody knows she got special treatment, and then we don't take her seriously. Why? Because she doesn't have merit. Go back to our conversations about education. Where are the worst schools, generally speaking, in most places? Primarily, it's the minority schools, the black majority schools. Who's in charge of those schools? all Democrats, forever. They've ruined the schools. New York City, black kids are not learning. What's happening? Well, now they go out into the world, they can't do math or English or write up to grade level, so they can't compete. Uh-oh, bad neighborhoods, lack of jobs. What do? They cry out for help from the left, from the government. That's the purpose of suffering. A suffering people, a chaotic people, a dying people are either easier to control. That is the end game. Black Americans, this woman that we just talked about, she is an example of who not to be. You do not want to be that person. Make it on merit. And if you're a black American, what you can do today is start speaking up in your neighborhood. Get rid of all of the elected class that's in there now. Anybody that's been in there more than a year, get them out, vote them out. Why? Because they're part of the problem. They have not changed. And stop voting for Democrats. They have single party control over your schools. They're not going to change. If they were going to change, they would have. It's been dozens and dozens and dozens of years, in some cases 50 years. Go look up and find out the last time Republicans had any meaningful say in Baltimore or Atlanta or New York City or Detroit or any number of cities. Keep looking them up, okay? That woman is an example. We don't need to, if we fix the education system, then we don't need to do affirmative action, which is, oh wait, black people don't get into Harvard if that's important to you as much as white people. Why? Because the schools suck. That's why. Fix the schools. Don't rig the system. That corrupts the soul. That corrupts the system. And it makes people not take her or him seriously. Fix the school. Okay, this is leftism. All right, that's it. We're going to be back tomorrow. Good show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. Pass it on, like, subscribe, and follow. We are anti-leftist because we are fighting the war between the left and the right. Okay, we haven't done a Promethean Action film study in a while, and they have been on fire delivering knowledge. Okay, so we'll probably do some of that tomorrow. But Trump has now said it out loud. I'll probably play some of this tomorrow. The Democrat Party are the socialists. Socialism and communism have no place in America. People think, and we'll go into this maybe tomorrow, that free speech means you can just say whatever you want, whenever you want, with no restrictions. That's not true. We have plenty of restrictions on speech. I think it's the Brandenburg case. Talked about it. Okay? You are not allowed to incite violence. Okay? Or an overthrow of the government. There's restrictions. These people like Tlaib and others who are screaming and yelling about taking over the country. By the way, I don't know how these Congress people, they took an oath. You can just look it up. The oath every congressperson takes. They're going to protect and defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. You can't be doing that if you're saying I need to change the Constitution or overthrow it. All right, that's for another day. Thanks for joining us. Please pass it on. Like, subscribe, follow, comments on X, The Ordinary American. Send us emails, theordinaryamerican@proton.me. We respond to all of them, even the bad ones. We see you, we get them. Okay, you leftists. Pass the word on. We got to get vocal. All right, we're going to be back here tomorrow. As I like to say, the great Father Mike Schmitz says, I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. I'm rooting for you. Please root for me. We'll see you tomorrow.